All right. Well, warm hellos back to all of you. Thanks to everyone who's said hello and where you're at today in the chat box. If you're just joining us and you haven't yet, feel free to let us know where you are today. Even let us know how the weather is and what you are teaching this year. So it's 3:15 and we will get started. And we are spending the next hour focusing in on literacy centers and play-based literacy learning in your primary classroom. And first of all, I wanted to acknowledge, as always, that we are gathering virtually from many different traditional Indigenous territories across British Columbia. And we thank our hosts for this beautiful land that we are gathering on today to do some work and some learning and some play together as well. And here's our focus for the next hour. So how play experiences and literacy centers can be used to guide and shape children's early literacy learning and support their early reading and writing development and those experiences. And as always with our after school specials, the way that we'll be doing that is through sharing some of the theory and current best practice research. So the why these are high impact and appropriate strategies and routines to support our students' playful learning. We will have some modeling and demonstrations, sharing the how, and then giving you that time to jump in and share with us how this can work for you and in your context, in your school, in your neighborhood, and with the students you're supporting this year. And if you haven't met us yet or been to one of our workshops, I'm Lisa Thomas, and I'm the program manager and a teacher consultant for POPEY. And I'm co-presenting today with my colleague, Jen Kelly, who is also a teacher consultant for POPEY. And if you got our pre-workshop email and we're directed to our website, it's popey.ca. And you can click on that professional learning watering can, and then there's a raindrop for our e-handout or print handout for today's session if you'd like. And that QR code at the bottom, if you have a phone or a tablet, you can scan that and use that to open up the e-handout on a second device if you'd like to work that way. Jen also just popped the link for handouts into the chat box. So you can click on the link in the chat box if you want to get to it that way as well. And we are recording the session and it will be posted to our YouTube channel next week. So if you missed part of it or want to go back and revisit or share with colleagues, that's the way to do it. And we have closed captioning available for you in the Zoom toolbar at the bottom if you would like to use that feature. And we're going to kick things off with a very simple but important question for all of you. So what does play mean to you? We're going to give you 1 minute to think about that and start to type your answer into the chat box. You can enter right away, or you can wait until the music finishes to hit enter. And at the end, we will have a lovely waterfall of over 100 different definitions of what play means to all of us. Thank you all so much. If you haven't entered your definition of play into the chat box yet, you still can. Please go ahead. Seeing a lot of really wonderful common threads, definitely, but essential, voluntary, exploratory, fun, creativity, testing, connecting, relationships, discovery, freedom, meandering, imagination, movement. Yeah, a lot of fun, drama, exploration, discovery, connections. Thank you so much for sharing that. You can also scroll through all of those and see what your colleagues from around the province have shared. And so that sets us up for how are we supporting that with our environment, with our timetable, with our routines and our practice in our classroom to give our students those opportunities for playful learning and all of those wonderful, really important words you just shared around meaning and choice, imagination, creativity, and play and fun and discovery. So the Ontario Science Centre has some really wonderful resources to support play and inquiry, including a YouTube series that's called Play-Based Learning. And what is play? So this is a screenshot actually from one of their videos in that series. And they also have a series called How to Get into Inquiry-Based Learning as well. So if you have the e-handout, you can click on that blue link on the bottom left corner, and it will take you out there if you are interested in doing any more research or checking out their video series. It really is a nice example of some Canadian work being done in Ontario. So looking at play as a vehicle for learning, and really that it lies at the core of innovation and creativity for our students. And so another key element of it is it supports the whole child. And also we want to be going forward from a place where we assume that all of our students and all children are competent, as well as having that curiosity. And that competence and the curiosity really primes them to explore and learn through play. So thinking about those opportunities for exploration and inquiry through their own curiosities and wonderings and what excites them, and us providing the supports to guide them along that learning journey there in a playful and loose way. And this is from the BC Ministries Play Today Handbook, which probably a lot of you have seen, and you may have some in your schools. And this isn't a hierarchy, and it's not really a checklist for different types of play, but it highlights the continuum of play for young children. And at this slide, we invite you to look at it, and there's 5 different types of play there. On the left, you see there, the left side of the continuum is free play. It's really child directed, about observations and reflection and real freedom and choice. And as you move towards the right, it moves towards educator guided and then educator directed. So going from free play to inquiry play, collaborative play, playful learning, and learning games. And as always, we invite you to think about what types of play opportunities you create and build into your timetable on a regular basis for your students. Is there one you do quite frequently that you use that works really well with your students? Is there one or more that you maybe could try and test out with your students, or add in a little more frequently to give them that varied range of play opportunities and experiences in the classroom? And while inquiry seems like one of those daunting words, it really can be students just following their own curiosity and those wonderful things that kids do of noticing things closely and having questions about everything, and those questions leading to new ideas. So inquiry really injects a play mindset into learning, because it's something that naturally occurs when kids are playing, and you see they can build whole worlds for themselves and create all sorts of stories and drama and events and worlds just with their curiosity and with their imaginations and with their thinking when they're left to do that. So inquiry being answering big questions through observation and experimentation. It sounds really official, it sounds really scientific, but it is an inherently natural process for all of our students. And the research shows that our students learn best when there is play and choice and open-endedness in their opportunities and experiences that we provide and set up in the classroom. So here are a few things from a really wonderful book called Purposeful Play. And I won't read this at you, but we will direct you to maybe looking at some keywords there, what jumps out at you as central to supporting kids' learning. And then a few more here. So POPEY, our mandate and our focus is K-3 literacy. And so a lot of the time, Jen and I really focus in deeply to reading and writing and word work and oral language and phonological awareness, reading conferences, writers workshop, all of these things. So it's a nice shift for us to focus in on this playful aspect. Bless you there to someone. And to look at all of these other elements and qualities and conditions we can put in place for students to support not just literacy, but to them as that whole child. So what we're going to have you do now, this is our first activity we'll get you to do together, is I'm going to, in a minute, I'll share all of those bullet points again for when kids learn best. So looking at play and choice and inquiry. And we're going to do a 4-2-1. So you'll read through it and you pick, each and every one of you will pick your own 4 words that capture the most important aspects from your list of 4. We'll ask you then to reduce it down to 2 words. And from those last 2 words, you're going to have to pick one. So the big idea that best represents what you just read about play and inquiry and choice and those conditions for student success. So here's an example one. So the words I pulled out of that, those bullets were movement, access, hands-on, and creativity. If I was forced to pick 2 out of those 4, I went with movement and creativity. And then 1, I got it down to movement. So that's just an example. You can use that if you want, but I bet that you probably have some different words in mind as well. So here's a 4-2-1 sheet. If you printed out our print handout, you'll have this here, but you can just write it on any piece of paper. And what I've got here all of those bullets from the 2 slides together on one page. So you can look at this. We're going to put 2 minutes on the clock. Again, I feel like I'm Richard Dawson on Family Feud. And we'll give you that 2 minutes to read through and really see which 4 words resonate with you, then 2, and then the one final word. So your ultimate champion word. If you can enter that one word in the chat box when the music ends, we'll probably have a really nice variety with some common words for sure, but with the 100+ of us here, it'll probably be a nice mix of different words. So Jen, anything else I should add there?
Nope, sounds great, Lisa.
Okay, I'm gonna start the timer and you'll just have 2 minutes on your own to read through this and do your 4, 2, 1, with the goal in mind to share your one final word when the music stops. Thank you. All right, if you haven't yet, please hit enter. And definitely, I hope you're also checking these out as well. This is amazing. I love that, Emily, the word that you chose was hearts. Just so lovely. So authentic, share, curiosity, imagination, risks, opportunities, passions, natural, authentic, expression, creativity. Lots and lots there, some commonalities for sure. And so before Jen takes over here, the close really is, or the question is to you, whatever that one word that you chose was that resonated with you, the question is, how does that show up in your routines and the time and opportunities, the instruction and the environment that you create for your students? And is there any way to enhance or increase opportunities to have more heart or more authenticity or joy? So thank you for sharing all of that.
Love it. I love seeing the waterfall effect of all of the words that you found you were connecting with, and I'm excited to move forward with this. So now we're going to take a look at balanced literacy and focus a little bit more on what this can look like in the context of playful opportunities for our students and literacy centers. So this is the work of Miriam Traherne, so a wonderful Canadian educator that we can learn from, and really looking at that idea of reading and writing to, with, and by children, having those opportunities for our students consistently, daily, weaving in, of course, our word work and our oral language. And I'm just going to direct your attention to the last bullet on the screen here, that this can be done, this authentic, all of the wonderful things that you mentioned can be done as with our literacy work that we have within our literacy blocks, within literacy center time, through play and inquiry. So they can provide that authentic learning for our students. And that's where a lot of the words that you were talking about, our students need to take ownership for their learning. They need to take risks with their learning. They need to have choice. So that authentic learning is really going to provide them with the opportunity to make their reading and writing to, with, and by children meaningful and purposeful. So I'm going to show you a short video here and see what this can look like in action. So a shout out to our colleagues in Surrey for making this video. I'm not going to show the whole thing to you just because of time, but it's linked out on our sources page if you wanted to check it out later. So let's see what this looks like. I have to say that I just love seeing other people's classrooms. As educators, we don't get enough time to get into other colleagues' classrooms and see, what they're doing, what's on the walls, what resources they're using. So I'm always just fascinated, and I appreciate these educators sharing with the rest of us. Now, I know that there are tons and tons of districts across BC that use Story Workshop as a way to engage their students in literacy learning, in playful inquiry. And a lot of our districts across BC use that because if we look at brain compatible ideas and we're looking at the learning modalities of auditory, tactile, kinesthetic, and visual, you can see so many of those points at the bottom of the slide here were enacted in the last 2 minutes of that video. So it's just a wonderful way that our students can engage in very purposeful learning that engages their brain in many different ways and also meets the needs of many of our children who have different learning styles. Okay, so these are our brain-based literacy activities, and this is broken down into the 4 main areas of literacy that we talk about a lot in POPEY, our 4 apples. So reading, writing, word work, and oral language. And this can be used as a reminder of different activities that can promote these kind of skills in our students that they can practice during literacy centers. And it can also be used as a way that we can check off, how are we doing with our literacy centers, our literacy work with our students through the different ways that we are connecting them to different activities. So this is available on our POPEY website if it's helpful for you at all. So you can print it off and have it in your classroom, have it on your desk, whatever works for you. You can cut it into bookmarks. We call it our bookmark. So you could have some fun with that. Now we also have these brain compatible activities. So this is a way that you can, again, available on our POPEY website, but you can look at how you can ensure that learning modalities are present in your different activities that you do in your literacy centers, and really make sure that we are meeting the needs of our very diverse students in our classrooms by providing different ways that they can learn with and from each other. And it looks like Lisa just put a link to those in the chat box. Thanks, Lisa. Okay, so as we are looking at these different kinds of ways that we are engaging all of our students in different learning activities through the brain-based literacy activities and the learning modalities, our question to you is, which brain-based literacy activities do or could you use in your classroom? Because we know that we can learn so much from our colleagues. Now is a sharing time for us. So if you could start to think about how you use these activities, we can start to get a little bit of a sense of getting into other people's classrooms by sharing these ideas, and then hopefully we can learn some new tricks and tips that we can start working with our students in our classrooms with. Okay, so I'm going to start the timer for 2 minutes. Think through how are you using different ways, these engaging different activities in your classroom, and we'll share. So you can start putting them in the chat box, or you can wait until the timer's over. Oh, wow. You guys, this is an amazing list of different activities that you are using to engage your students. I have to tell you how to save the chat, because this is a wealth of knowledge that you need to revisit when you have some more time, not in the middle of a really fast-paced workshop. But on your chat box at the very bottom, beside where it says file, there's 3 dots there. If you click that, you can click on save chat, and then it will be saved to your computer. Okay, so everyone save it. This is gold. And we're going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's think of literacy centers of today. So what literacy centers of today are very, very purposefully planned so that our students have the best opportunity, so they have successful opportunities while they're participating in independent practice time. So this is these are skills or activities or concepts that have been previously taught, and they now have the chance to play around with those concepts, those skills, in the form of independent practice. So looking at that scaffolded guided release of responsibility, this is where they get to play around and take those risks and take ownership of their learning and have some exploration time. So it's very meaningfully, purposefully planned and differentiated. So a lot of our activities, as Leighton Schellert would say, we would want to have a low floor, high ceiling for, so that all of our students have an entry point and access point to the activity, but that it can be extended up from a basic level. This is to save you the time as well, because you don't want to be continually changing over your centers. You want to be able to just enhance your centers or extend them, so that it's less changeover time for you to always be coming up with new ideas. And also our students really respond well to having routine, to knowing what they're going to be participating in, and then just extending that learning. And what this does is it really frees up you. It frees up your time. It gives students a chance to have playful learning, exploration, choice, all of those things that you wrote about in the chat box earlier. And what that means for you as our students are engaging in this type of learning, this playful learning, this is now your time as a teacher to be working with small groups or individuals, or doing some observation or assessment, so that time is incredibly, incredibly valuable to you as an educator as well. Okay, so Lisa's going to go into a little bit more detail on specific centers.
Thanks, Jen. All right, and now what we're looking at is the what. So we've talked about the brain-based and the different modalities, kinesthetic, auditory, and those as well. And now we're dipping into looking at our 4 apples of literacy across reading, writing, oral language, and word work. And as Jen mentioned, the students aren't trying something new they've never done before at a literacy center or station. It's always an opportunity for them to practice and explore and experiment with previously taught skills and strategies that you've done in your direct daily instruction or mini lessons with the whole class, probably more than once even. So a few times the kids have that confidence in the scaffolded support to try it in the whole group and with small groups on the floor, the carpet, and in some guided practice at their desks. So during reading or writing workshop or center time, we're able to circulate and check in to see how they are going with practicing and strengthening each of those skills. So in a Wordwork center, looking at what it can reinforce the students' skills in, obviously the big ones are phonemic and phonological awareness, their concepts of print, print awareness, letter formation, word patterns, and word families. The nice thing about this is it can be quite open-ended to be, I guess, to give opportunities for differentiation. So you can have similar materials or common set of materials, and students can do different types of activities with them to match and suit and meet them where they're at their current level and their current ability with their word solving skills. So differentiation is important, variety and choice. Obviously, this is probably the one type of a center where there's a tendency to have lots of materials, which can mean a challenge for cleanup. But I know when I was in the classroom, that was always a part of our routines that we built in, was the students having that expectation that they'll do the cleanup as well and get it back to looking like it did before they got there. So it wasn't too much of a disaster zone. But when you think about Scrabble tiles and magnetic letters and whiteboards or sand or rice, the possibilities for mess and chaos can be wild. So do what works for you. And some of those ideas for Wordwork Center, and you've shared a lot already for activities for students that you're doing in your classes. Here are a few examples. Letter sort, playing word games. I used to scrounge around at, remember when you could go to garage sales and look through people's stuff? Now that just seems wild that we did that. But those are always wonderful for getting some old school games that I could use and add to my Wordwork Center. And then games around chanting the word wall I Spy. Also, if you have some really wonderful Wordwork Center ideas that you use that you really love, again, feel free to share that in the chat box with everyone. We'd love to see and read about it. Maybe Jen can read those out as I continue on. And earlier I added the link to POPEY's K-3 Literacy Center ideas. We've got a document that's about 8 pages. It has 2 pages each of examples like this for Wordwork Center ideas, reading, writing, and oral language and drama. So if you are looking for more center ideas that are a nice balance, but not too time consuming and not ones that you would need to be changing up all the time, you can check those out for sure. And with our reading center, some of the elements are the same as that Wordwork, with phonological awareness and phonemics awareness, concepts of print at the earliest emergent level for our young readers. They're also being able to build their word recognition strategies, elements of the story, literary elements and devices, and then using that vocabulary to talk about text if they're in a small group at that reading center. So it's giving them extra practice and time and opportunity to read books and then talk about books with their peers and write about books as well. So it shows that really explicit, natural connection between texts and reading and writing and our thoughtful conversations. Having a variety of books is really important for differentiation, obviously. And we have set them up for success at these centers by having done the explicit instruction and modeling how they can choose just right reads to make it successful and meaningful practice for them, rather than picking books that are much too easy or too difficult all the time. So it's right in their wheelhouse, in that zone where they want to be continually stretching themselves as readers. Back in my classroom, I had books on tape. Many of you may have had those as well, with the big long, the headphones, the foamy headphones with the 10-foot long cord that looked like a telephone cord. That was always a bit of a risk for tripping or mayhem. And that has evolved to CDs. And now we've got tiny little devices where students can listen to books on phones or iPads and tablets, partnering up with another student to do a buddy book walk, making predictions and doing inferencing, working on their oral language skills and those concepts of story, and doing book reviews and book recommendations, whether that's in print and writing that they create them, or doing presentations to other students or to the class about books they've read and they liked, is another possibility there. And these are just 3 of about a dozen or so that we have on our literacy centers document.
I'll just point out.
And the writing center. Yes.
Amy had a great idea about making making sentences with cut up words, including punctuation, linking words such as and. Some other people had ideas around QR codes, using QR codes. I think that was to do with the reading. Yeah, please continue. There's some cool ideas coming through.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing these. So with the Writing Center, the reinforcing skills that have already been taught, they're getting that chance to practice elements of story, this time not as a reader, but as a writer, creating a story and making sure those elements are in place. So looking at character, plot, setting, conflict resolution, detail, dialogue, all of those things. Text features, sentence structure, conventions, and then really getting creative and playful with coming up with story ideas and acting them out, which we can talk about as well in the oral language one and readers theater. But the planning and the thinking and the imagination and the playfulness tapped in here, if students are following what they're interested in and they're curious about, if they want to have all of their stories for 3 months or about dinosaurs or unicorns, that's fantastic. I mean, the Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus is a really wonderful book and series. And I think lots of students would love to see that pigeon in endless adventures in different settings and different situations. So going with what they're excited about and having that be something maybe that features in their stories can help support reluctant writers, reluctant readers, and give them that practice in a really engaged way to develop all of these writing concepts and skills that we've been teaching them in our mini lessons and instruction in the class. So 3 examples here for some Writing Center ideas. I know this is one we suggested last spring when we shifted to home learning. Snail mail, writing letters to students in another area of the province or maybe even another country. Show me your story, using photos or images or pictures and telling a story about them or writing. And then looking at descriptive writing about things that are available to see in the classroom, in the school, school grounds, or community, or even at home. And finally, our 4th apple for supporting oral language. Dramatic play is a really wonderful way to do that. And that supports our students again. It's reinforcing in another way, from another angle, another aspect, those structures of stories, literary elements and devices. They're having to plan and create their own worlds and their own stories. And chances are they'll find inspiration from the stories that we've read aloud to them and things we focused on in class. So they're building on their oral language as well as reading and their oral storytelling processes and tapping into that imagination, exploration, creativity, choice, and fun. And the role plays also allow them to navigate interpersonal and social interactions and problem solving. So it's a nice way to tap in and draw in some of those core competencies as well that we're wanting to see in terms of collaboration and communication and getting along with each other, how to navigate who's going to be the hero in the story, how the story ends, who gets to hold which stuffy, and all of those sorts of details that might come up, little skirmishes. So Readers Theater is a real lovely one. Here are 3 examples from our Literacy Center's resource. I know I used to do guided reading with my students. We sort of followed a loose daily 5 framework, and I adapted it a little bit, but at the end of our couple of weeks or so reading a book together, the students would get to do Readers Theater. So they were all really familiar with the book and the text and the characters by then, and they could bring in props and costumes and perform. And so I had maybe 5 or 6 different small reading groups, and they would each get to perform for the other groups. And it was kind of neat because the other groups hadn't read that book. So it was really familiar for the students performing, but it was a treat for the others who hadn't read that book yet. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jen for another type of center and a cute little video of a student in action.
Okay, so a selfie center is a unique idea that was not around the last time that I was in a classroom, but such a cool idea to really engage our students in the act of developing oral language, in the act of reflecting on their learning, in the act of reflecting on their thinking. So a Selfie Centre can meet a lot of your goals. It can even document growth over time when we consider whatever we're using a Selfie Centre for. So we're going to show you an example of what we're talking about in a moment here, but it's really a chance for our students to take ownership of their learning, to create a documentation of their learning, and perhaps have an audience, but definitely have a voice. So this is a place where we can really honor our students' voices and what they can teach the rest of us about themselves and their learning. So it really encourages decision making, because our students are deciding what they would like to share in the Selfie Centre about their learning. Maybe it's a book review, maybe it's a piece of writing, maybe it's their opinions about a topic, but it's just a really great way for our students to have that self-monitoring and self-assessment at the time, and really highlight their strengths as students. So we'll show you Miss Charlotte here. So this is an example of Charlotte. If you don't know Charlotte, okay, well, if you don't know Live Bits, check out Live Bits, because Olivia is just the best on book reviews and different things that are very engaging for students. And this is her little sister, Charlotte, obviously following in her footsteps. So check it out. Okay, yeah, there's just so much you can say about Charlotte. Is everyone ready to go out and save the earth now? So many different things that you can do with a Selfie Centre. Lots of ideas there. So when we think about all that we've talked about, we've really used a lot of the language that you talked about earlier on when you were thinking about when you were reflecting on what play means to you. And really a lot of the words that came up were, when you did the 4-2-1, were things like risk-taking, having that ability to take risks through experimentation, through open-ended activities where students get to explore and see reactions to different things in really authentic ways. So what this really boils down to a lot is their ability to have choice, to feel wonder and delight. And again, a lot of those words came up, that aspect of joy. But what does this look like in our classrooms? It looks like setting goals and making rules. It looks like exploring and trial and error. Those are all things that we want our students to do, obviously, on an ongoing basis. But it also looks like happiness. It looks like students smiling and feeling at ease and just being joyful. So we're going to end with this powerful words from Dr. Jeffrey Wood. In order for children to develop in their literacy learning, it is vital that they have opportunities to engage in literate play, something they cannot do if their day is filled with instruction. I know we're preaching to the converted here, because everything that you said through this whole workshop was about giving our students that time to play. So we need to provide children with the time to play along with a wide variety of open-ended and literacy-focused materials for use during play. So we took a look at the power of playful learning through that 4-2-1 activity that Lisa took you through. We looked at story workshop and that wonderful video from our story colleagues, BrainBased Literacy activities, and what specific literacy centers could look like. So what's one thing that you want to try? What did you connect with? Is there something that you want to try to provide more opportunities for your students in choice, wonder, and delight? Feel free to pop that into the chat box if you'd like to share it with us. We would love to hear it. Okay. Oh, I see the Selfie Centre is pretty popular. Awesome.
Readers Theatre.
And Readers Theatre, excellent. So these are the resources that we use to build your workshop today. Anything that we referred to is linked out here. That if there was a link, we have the little live bits video if you wanted to check that out. So feel free to go back and check out anything that we have there. We also put in the POPEY Literacy Centers in case you missed that link. And here is our contact info for Lisa and I. We hope to hear from you. This is our second to last after school special, so we really hope to see you at the next one. And we're super happy that we are going to be continuing next year.